Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's online information session with Maynooth University. My name is Harriet and I am Postgraduate Recruitment Manager here at Maynooth with our Postgraduate office. Um, Today's event focuses on our Master of Social Science in Social Work. And I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Daniel McFadden and Dr. Joanna O'Shea from the Department of Applied Social Studies within the university. And they're going to take you through some of the details of the programme and they will ask any questions that you have relating to that programme or your admission to that programme at the end. We're also joined by my colleague, Deirdre Dunn from the International Office. And so if any of you are prospective international students or our international partner agents, Deirdre will be on hand to help us answer any questions that you might have. You can submit throughout the webinar, you can submit any questions or comments through the Q&A function throughout the event, and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. Don't wait until the end to ask your questions. Please pop your questions into the Q&A as you think of them. So now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. McFadden, and he's going to take us through today's presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Harriet, for that. I'm delighted to be here today, everyone, to talk to you about the Masters in Social Science, Social Work. We're currently open to applications for our September 2026 entry onto the program. So very quickly and generally, I'm going to talk about social work. So generally, social work is often defined as a profession that is at the forefront of many of society's social issues. Okay, so individuals tend to work both in a variety of settings in the community, but also in institutional settings like hospitals, often dealing with the social issues that people encounter. This can include things like child protection, it can include the probation service, it can include medical social work. Okay, so there's a broad range of areas that social workers tend to work in, and those who come onto our program and complete the 2-year Masters in Social Work are then eligible to register with CORU and work in any of these areas, okay? So it's often said one of the big attractions of social work is that variety that you get to engage in. At one point in your career, you can be a child protection social worker working to, protect children who are experiencing abuse and neglect. In another part, you can be in a major hospital working to discharge plan older people back home so that they can live independently. So there's a real variety of work that you can undertake with a social work degree. So you see here on the slide, social work is informed by a variety of other disciplines which all intersect to make up social work in its practice. Okay. So we see psychology and the study of the human mind and behavior is key to understanding how social work works. The study of society through sociology and understanding all the social elements that can impact upon people and their environments and how their environments impact upon them. And then we also use a lot of counseling skills because as much as we recognize the larger world that people live within and how that impacts upon them, and people often on an individual basis need to be worked with to be able to navigate through these issues. And a key part of becoming a social worker is learning those counseling skills as well. Okay. And so our course would cover all of those different types of subjects. We'd look at some psychology, sociology, counseling skills, as well as a lot of social work theory and so on as well. Okay. So what does it look like? So we've been around since September 2019 was our first intake, and we're a 2-year full-time program. So that covers 4 days of teaching and then one study day. So this is all designed to equip you for your career in social work. Our closing date for applications is in the 13th of February 2026, but we're currently offering interviews on a rolling basis. So if you are interested in applying, I'd encourage you to get your application in as soon as possible because that means you'll be interviewed sooner and then hopefully awarded a place if successful at the interview. Okay, so what does it look like? So 2 full academic semesters. So September to December is the academic semester, and then February to May is the placement practice semester. So when you're with us here at Maynooth University and you're focusing on the academic semester, we look at social work theory, so the different theories that inform social work, and there's a big academic background to learn from in terms of that. We look at social work methods, which relates a lot to counselling skills. So we focus on different methods like strengths-based motivational interviewing, cognitive behavioral therapy. Then we think about social work issues, okay? So again, as I said at the beginning, social work covers so many areas from health to justice to child protection. So the master's qualifies you to work in all of those areas. So thus you will learn about all of those areas, which makes for a really diverse learning experience while here with us in Maynooth. We focus on skills. So we have live skills classes in small groups where you're allocated a qualified social worker who will help you to develop those skills. And we do lots of role plays in order to develop those skills also, so that when you go out into practice, that you're well prepared for in terms of those skills. And then lastly, and perhaps most importantly, is the social work value base. All social workers have a key value base that really helps to inform our practice. Things like equality, social justice, anti-oppressive practice. Many of the people that we work with are the most marginalized in society. So it's really key that social workers are, one, aware of that, and also that we practice to be anti-oppressive and to recognize those levels of inequality. So when you're here with us in Maynooth, those are the values that we have and that we espouse and that we pass on to future social workers for their future practice. So our fieldwork placements are made up of 2 full semesters and they're 14 weeks in duration. Okay. So you'll be out on placement within a social work agency. So it could be TUSLA, or it could be a probation service, or it could be medical setting. While out, you have a practice teacher, so that's someone who's employed by one of those agencies and is working there. So they will support you, help you to develop your learning in your social work practice and that type of a thing. But you're also allocated an academic tutor from the university. They support you throughout that placement as well and make sure that you're learning and progressing while on placement. So one placement must be a statutory placement. So that means if you come on to the Masters, you will be placed either in TUSLA or the probation service at one stage or another. Okay. And that's a requirement from CORU, our independent regulator. So what does assessment look like? So we pride ourselves on having a really diverse range of assessments in social work, because again, we want you to be sort of reflexive, reactive practitioners who are capable of communicating in multiple different ways. So we have traditional written assignments, like essays. We also have group work presentations because it's really important to learn how to work with other social workers and to communicate well. We have a session on courtroom skills because many of the individuals who complete our masters, particularly if you work in TUSA or probation, will be involved in courtroom activity and have to testify. And it's really important that you're well prepared for this. We have a dissertation, a large research component, which is basically a large literature review on an area of your own interest, which you find interesting. And a lot of our students really enjoy this component because it's an opportunity to get into an area that they find really interesting. I know at the minute I'm just finishing supervising a number of different dissertations in relation to substance use and mental health and how individuals continue to parent while facing substance use issues. And that was the interest of some of the students who were with us here in Maynooth. And so if you have a similar interest in another area, you'll get to really explore that while here. We do different types of project work, and we also have an exam in law because social workers work and interact with the law on a daily basis. And so you need to have a good understanding of it, of what that is, and be able to recall and rely upon it easily, particularly again if you're in that statutory setting. Okay. And then finally, we have practice placements. So you need to pass both placements in order to pass the masters. And that's decided by your practice teacher in cooperation with your tutor and the university. So, as many of you hopefully know, social work is a regulated profession in the Republic of Ireland and it's a protected title. So, anyone who wants to work as a social worker has to be able to register with CORU. All social work courses have to be approved by CORU, and we are. We recently went over our revalidation and were revalidated for another 7 years. Um, so basically, when you graduate, that means you can register with CORU and you can work in any of those professions that requires, in any of those areas that require a CORU registered social worker. And as such, CORU closely monitor our program, and so all of our teaching is aligned with the CORU standards of practice. So you'll be well prepared for registering with CORU and working in practice when you go out into the workforce. Okay, so well, let's talk a little bit about the entry requirements now. So for the first year, we've had a bit of a change in this. So we still have our standard entry route, okay, which is generally having a level 8 qualification in a social science related area, and you should have gotten a 2-2 in that, okay? So the degree must have a social science or social policy element and a minimum. You also need to have a minimum of 420 hours of certified relevant practice experience before the course commences, okay? I recognize that not all students might have that at this stage. So if you're coming for interview, you should have a plan about how you will meet those 420 hours if you're not able to articulate that right now. Okay. So that's our traditional entry route. But we're really excited this year because we're opening up our recognized prior learning route as well. So this is basically recognizing that people might be very eligible and really good social workers, but they might not have come that standard route. Okay. So another route is that you can hold any level 8 primary degree in basically anything, but you need to have completed at least 12 months of relevant work experience in a relevant social work or social work related field. So that's generally like a social care type of role, okay? And so if you have a level 8 in anything, but have 1 year in social care, then you can come in via our RPL route. If you have a level 7 degree in the social science or its equivalent, and you have 3 years of experience. That's a level 7, but 3 years of social care experience, you can enter through that route. Then we have people who may come in and they don't have a degree. Okay, so they haven't gone to university and obtained a degree. But if they have 5 years of relevant professional experience in a social work or social work related field, then they can also enter for the first time ever through our RPL route as well. Okay, so it's really exciting for us in Maynooth here because we used to just have the standard entry and now we've really opened that up. And so we're really excited about getting some really good value-based social workers in through these routes. And so if you are one of those, we really welcome you and we hope that you're considering applying. So all successful applicants need to be successful at interview, okay? So this means that we want you to be able to show a good understanding of the role of social work. Social work is really rewarding, but it's also challenging. So it's important that you have a good understanding of what that is before you come to us, okay? You need to provide two references, one academic and one practice related. Obviously, if you've come in under the undergraduate or the route where you don't have a degree, you won't be able to provide the academic reference necessarily. So still apply and we can have discussions about how we might sort that out. You also need to complete Garda vetting, okay? And you do that once you come on to the course. It's not something that you do before you start, but it's just something important to remember that everyone who comes on to the Masters has to be Garda vetted and we'll be going through that process with you, okay? So apply through MU Apply. Okay, that's our system for applying to the Masters. As I said, it's early February, but we encourage you to apply ASAP. We'll then shortlist for interview to make sure everyone is eligible. And then if you're successful, we'll offer you a place. And then we'll do reference checks once you have accepted that place. And then the police clearances will be done from September once you come on to the course. When we're doing the reference checks, we'll also verify the 420 hours. So for your 420 hours, make sure that you're able to evidence them. Okay. Um, so a little, sort of insight into what kind of things we'll be looking for at interview. So if you're sitting here on the webinar right now and you know you're going to apply, then you know it's likely you'll be interviewed. So these are some of the things that we might want to know about, okay? So if you're studying at a master's level, what's the difference between an undergrad and a master's? Are you recognizing and realize the step up that it might take to take part in a master's degree, okay? What is social work right for you? Have you thought about that? Is it something that you think you could do on a daily basis, as your career? Think about how theory fits with social work. Do you have any understanding of any theories that might be relevant or theories that have informed your practice in other areas or your work experience to date? How do you manage a work-life balance? Okay, that's really important in social work because the work can be quite emotional and constraining, and you can see some difficult situations. So we want to know that students are aware of the work-life balance. We'll ask you about your own work experience and your own personal experiences and how you've helped people in the past. Well, ask you to think about how does that work relate to social work? How is it the same or how is it different depending on the context? We want you to think about examples where you've had an impact, okay, where you've worked well with people and what made you think that you worked well with them? How were they helped at the end of the day? And then I want you to think about what will make you a good social worker. When you're sitting here and you're interested in this, what, attributes do you have that you think will contribute to you being a good social worker? So those are some of the things. So if you are applying and you know you'll be interviewing, I'd say try and, jot down some of them now on the screen because that'll be preparing for your interview. Knowing those questions will give you a good insight into how to prepare. Okay. Um, so these are the different outcomes. You can get a definite offer, which is that you're in, a conditional offer, so we'll need to check references. You might be put on the waiting list, which can often happen, but a place might become available depending, or you might get no offer of a place, depending on if you didn't perform well at the interview. But we'd always encourage people to apply the next year. Often students, if they don't do well at interview, it might be that they just need a bit more experience in a relevant field, and then they need to maybe study social work more and understand it more before coming back to us. Okay, and if you do want feedback on reasons for decision, you can they'll be provided upon request. It's important to know that if you are offered a place and you want to defer it automatically, that's not possible from 2026. Okay. You either accept the place or you don't. So important to remember that. So if you're applying now and you already think that, oh, I'll apply and I'll just defer it, that won't be possible this year. So it'll be better to wait until next year and apply again then. Okay. So why choose this program? So we have a very diverse students from different minority ethnic groups in our masters in social work, and it's a real strength of Maynooth, I think. We have students from so many different countries, of so many different backgrounds, who have experience of so many different systems, and it leads to really rich conversations in the classroom in terms of those different experiences. So that's really excellent. And it's not just, racial ethnic differences, but also in terms of age. Some people are coming straight from bachelor degrees from their undergrad and are in their early 20s. Other people are much further on in their lives. Maybe their children have grown and they're interested in a career change. So that's another real strength. We have so many people from across the life course who are on the masters. We have a relatively small group. We have about 40 students at the minute. And also our skills teaching is done in really small groups of about seven or eight. So that's a real strength of Maynooth University that we recognise skill development needs to happen in small groups and we accommodate that. We're quite a small staff team. There's only about four or five of us at any one time. So it means that we often get to know you really well. And that's again, I know we know every student by name, basically, which is a really lovely experience to have as an academic. And hopefully the students feel the same. We provide really good pastoral support in the department and team. We recognise the challenge of moving through the masters and the constraints, and so we do provide good pastoral support in supporting you. And we often have really excellent feedback from placement providers on MU students. So students who go through our program tend to go through it and go out into agencies, and the agencies are always really happy with how they're doing and how they're progressing. Okay, and there's really excellent job opportunities post qualifying for students as well. So we recognize there's these are kind of what the fees look like, and it can be quite an investment in yourself to come on this master's. But what we'd say to that is that often social workers tend to, do quite well in terms of financial salaries then when they do qualify. And we see some basic grade salaries and some senior grade salaries there, which students report that has often, qualifying with a social work degree has meant that they've been able to pay back those fees with relative quickness because of the level of pay that they've been receiving. So it's quite good. Also, with our own fees, we're the lowest in the Dublin region, which is often attractive for some students as well. Okay, there's a limited number of bursaries for 2026, and we would defer you to the Maynooth University Postgraduate Studies Fees and Funding Scholarships website around that. Again, our department ourselves don't process or hold any scholarships, but we advise you to consult if that is something that you're interested in. Also, a limited number of Scholarships are available from agencies like TUSLA, but again, TUSLA manage that completely independently. But I'd advise you to search it on Google and look at TUSLA scholarships, and they have an arrangement there that they make with some students, and we have some students currently who are with us on TUSLA scholarships as well, if that's what you're interested in, and you think child protection is something that is for you. Okay. And any other financial supports information is available on studentfinance.ie. So that's really it from us. I hope that was informative and you got enough information. And we really welcome, any questions that you might have.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Daniel. That was really informative, even for me as someone that works in
Mhm.
Maynooth University, to learn more about
Mhm.
the program. I always learn more when I listen to program directors speaking about
Good.
it. So thank you so much. And I know that everyone listening in and watching will have found that really useful. Um, we have a couple of questions, but let me just, before I get to those, just a reminder to everybody watching and listening, please submit your questions. You can type your questions into the Q&A box or the Q&A section where you're watching this, and we'll get through as many questions as possible. So please start adding in your questions now. Um, Daniel, we obviously have a few people listening who've already applied for the program, and so there's just a little, and I think you gave a good overview of what that
Mm.
application process looks like, particularly around the interview and kind of decision making that the department are taking on applications. But we've a couple of people sort of asking, when they can expect feedback on their applications. They're still waiting for a response. So can you maybe just give again an overview of how that will work and when people might expect to hear from you once they've submitted their application?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're moving quite quickly on applications now at this point, and we've already started offering interviews this week. So basically, if your application is entirely complete, then we're working through that at the minute, and you should hear from us within the next week, at absolute latest, 2 weeks from now. But if now we can't process any applications until they're absolutely complete. So just make sure that that is the case, and if that is the case, then you'll be offered an interview within 1 to 2 weeks. Equally, if you're completing it now, and you don't get it in to say the 13th of February, our interviews will be taking place in March for anyone who doesn't get in until the absolute deadline. So you'll expect to hear from us before March if you don't manage to complete until the deadline.
Brilliant. And I think on that, the postgraduate recruitment team, the admissions team, the international office are here to support students when they're if they do have any questions on their application. So, for example, if you think that you're missing a document, or if you've received an email to say you're missing a document on your application, and you're just not sure what it is, or you need to clarify something, please get in contact with the admissions team. Because like Daniel said, only a complete application will be sent over to the department for their review. So let's try and get you to that stage as quickly as possible, and then it'll kind of speed up the process for you. Um, we have there's another kind of question there around when do we hear if the application is successful or not. I think we've probably just answered that. Once a complete application is received, it will go over to the Applied Social Studies team, and they will review those. Um, Candidates may be brought forward to an interview, and at the end of that, you will hear whether you're successful or not. If you're successful, you'll receive an offer letter from the admissions team. So hopefully we've clarified some of that process. Um, Daniel, there another question that comes up a lot is the schedule for students. How many days a week are students expected on campus, how many hours, etc. I think you had information on that in one of your earlier slides, but just in case anyone was late joining, could you just give a quick review of what students can expect in terms of that class schedule?
Yeah, absolutely. So during the academic semester, we have technically four days of teaching. Okay. So what we're looking to do from September and what we're going to pilot is to do a sort of a blended approach to that. So there'll be 2 days on campus and then a day and a half online. Okay. So we're doing that, I suppose, with the recognition that students have a sort of a variety of different priorities they need to do at any one time. And we also recognize sort of the benefits of more digital learning and blended learning approaches. So we will have a case where September to December, you're committed to, and should have 4 days free to be able to engage in that learning, but only 2 of those days will actually be in person and on campus, and you'll be able to do the other learning days from home.
Brilliant. Okay. Um, Another question is kind of what kind of support do students receive from faculty members? Um, I suppose we might have students that are a little bit nervous about taking on a master's program, or maybe have been out of education or study for a long time and are returning to it. You did mention that there's a relatively small number of students on this program, and there's kind of 5 faculty members or department members, which is a very good ratio in terms of the support and the attention that students would get. But can you just give us an idea of how you would support students kind of in their learning, just to alleviate any worries that people might have about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I think at Maynooth we recognize that we've had again, it goes back to the diversity in our class, and we have so many students with so many competing priorities. So we recognize the challenges of moving through the masters and being able to get everything done. Okay. And so we work very closely with students if they are experiencing any difficulty, and we try and be flexible around the arrangements as much as possible. Now, in terms of assignments, that would mainly be what we can't be flexible around is things like attendance, okay? Because Koru are very clear that attendance is mandatory, okay? And they're the independent regulator. So that part is fixed. But we can definitely try and be more flexible around things like assignments and deadlines and stuff like that when possible. Also,
Okay.
we do make ourselves available to students if they are struggling and if they need extra support. One thing students can find difficult, particularly if they're returning, is the dissertation. And you get an individual dissertation supervisor who's available to meet you and guide you through all of that and sit with you one-on-one moving through it. Equally, Maynooth at a wider basis, a lot of our students engage with the Writing Centre in Maynooth if they're struggling with writing. And I've seen students really progress from the first year of the Masters, engaging with the Writing Centre, getting individual one-to-one contact, which is available to them. And their writing has really improved over the course of that. And so we're really lucky in Maynooth that we have that available to students in terms of the Writing Centre. We also have, so if any students have a disability, we have the disability office who are able to engage with students and support them as well. We have students on the course at the moment who are registered with a disability, and they have accommodations around that as well. And then equally, there's the student counselling service. If students are, struggling at any point and they need that individual input, Maynooth at large has the counselling service. So it's a combination of the academic staff support with the academics, but Maynooth has a huge apparatus open to itself in terms of different things that can help students too.
Brilliant. Fantastic. We've got a few more questions in. Just a final call out for any questions that you have. Put them in now, because we'll answer kind of 2 or 3 more questions before we finish. One question on kind of eligibility or entry requirements. Someone is asking, would a BSc psychology graduate be eligible for this course?
Yeah, so I suppose the BSc psychology, the best way is to apply and to send your transcripts, because basically what we do is we look at the transcripts and we try and identify the different modules that people have done. And if there's relevant modules in there that refer to the social science or policy element, then we might be able to accept them under the standard route. But if that's not the case on the degree that they've done, they can apply under the RPL route. But at that stage, they need to have the full year completed in within a social care, social work type setting, So my best advice would be to apply, upload your transcripts, and we'll be able to review them through that process.
Yeah, I think that's our general advice for all programs. If you're
Yeah.
not sure, apply, and
Yeah.
because it does often come down to modules. and
Yes.
what you've studied at module level. There is on the Maynooth University website, the program has a dedicated program page there, and there is more information on entry requirements for students to have a look at. We had another couple of questions. A question on SUSI funding. Does SUSI fund postgraduate courses? I'll just answer that really quickly. It is possible to have SUSI funding on postgraduate courses as a general rule, and it will really come down to your individual circumstances. Susie's website is really good for further information um, on funding, and you can check through their website. You can kind of get a high level answer as to whether you may be eligible for funding or not. So we'd advise going directly to the Susie website to check that for yourself. And I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that, or we'll move on to the next question maybe.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
covers it, Harriet. Yeah.
yeah. Again, just a question on schedules and timetabling. It's often a big question. Somebody's asking, is it possible to get a timetable um, in advance, for the 4 days that students would be in, particularly for those who are working? Um, Daniel, I don't know. A lot of the time, timetables can change from year to year, so an
Yeah.
advanced timetable may not be possible, but I don't know if it's different for this program.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I might just hand our program director Joanna is here who looks after the timetabling, so I think she's a good person to speak to that. Joanna?
Yes, I mean, we will meet in June, and we always aim in June to finalize the timetable. Now, that's about 90% finalized in June because obviously we're part of a large organization, and if they change something, then we might have to be flexible. But generally speaking, by June, late June, we would know which days are we going to be on campus, which days will the students be working at home or having live classes online. Just to say the times that they don't have live classes, there will be asynchronous material that they would be expected to work through. This is a professional master's. There's a lot of work involved, and so there's a lot of study time, independent study time. But we will know the 2 days. We should know the 2 days on campus in June and the 2 days online teaching, live online teaching by late June. Any teaching day is 10, it starts at 10 in the morning if it's on campus and finishes at 4 in the afternoon if it's on campus. If the teaching is live online, it can start at any time from 9 o'clock in the morning. If it's a full day, it could finish at 5 o'clock. If it's a half day, it will finish before 2 o'clock. Okay, hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's really detailed. Last question I think we have here is just on the experience, the working experience requirement, the 420 hours of relevant experience. And Daniel, you mentioned this during your presentation. The question is, what is the scope of this? So would, for example, admin work for a social work related company, a home care company, be considered?
No, generally not. We want students to have a more direct hands-on experience. One, to better prepare you for coming onto the course and for placement, but also to make sure that you like it. It's quite different to work in admin and to observe social care, social work happening, but it's another thing to do it. And so we want to make sure that students are very well prepared and know what's the right thing for them before they come on.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all of our questions. Uh, those watching and listening, you might think of something in the hours or days ahead. So please ensure to get in contact with us with any questions that you have, or if you have submitted an application or you're thinking about submitting an application. Remember that the deadline is the 13th of February for this program, so it does close earlier than the majority of programs at Maynooth. So be mindful of the early closing date. Make sure that you've fully submitted your application. It's not enough just to start the application; you have to fully submit it by that deadline for us to be able to consider you. First the admissions team, and then the department. Um, The international office can be contacted if you are a non-EU or an international student or a partner agent, and they provide fantastic support to students and prospective students. And the postgraduate recruitment team and the postgraduate admissions team are also here to answer any of your questions. And all of our contact details and more information about what we do can be found on the Maynooth University website, as can more information about the programme and the Department of Applied Social Studies. So all that's left for me to do is to thank all of my colleagues, Dr. Daniel McFadden, Dr. Joanna O'Shea, and my colleague Deirdre from the International Office for joining today and for taking the time to bring us all through that important programme information and answering those questions as well. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.